So thank, all right, okay. Okay, please, I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. So first of all, I want to thank the NUGS executives, that's the China and then Xi'an chapter, for giving me this platform to be able to share with the Ghanaian community and other researchers who by chance have joined today's workshop. And also I would like to thank my brother, Mr. Justin Kwanzaa, who informed me of this opportunity. And then he spoke to the executives and they said, okay, I can come on board. So thank you very much. Okay, so today, basically our workshop is on how to avoid journal desk rejection in order to have our papers accepted, and then also how to select journals. So basically that is what our workshop is about today. I want us to be kind of open-minded. Let's jot down our questions, and then when the time is up, I'll open up the floor for anyone who has any question to come in with it. And then I hope I can be able to provide that kind of answer for the person. All right, so as I said, today's workshop has the title Avoiding Journal Desk Rejection. And as Mr. Samuel Ajiman said, I'm a postdoctoral researcher in KAIST, which is Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. And I'm currently working as a postdoc researcher in the Mechanical Research Institute, but I'm currently in the Department of Aerospace Engineering. All right. So this is a short biography of myself. Although Mr. Ajiman has given my background, I still want to go over some of the things. And please, these kind of workshops are open to all of us. Maybe you see a resource personnel who is in your research area. These are times you can always link up with a person. Networking is very key whenever these kind of workshops are organized. So if you are in any of these areas, like I'm into experimental aerodynamics, you can always contact me. My email is found on the left lower corner, my KAIST email, and then my personal Gmail. So feel free to kindly contact me for any collaboration or for anything that maybe you might need an explanation in concerning experimental aerodynamics. So as was said earlier, I am currently in KAIST, which is Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology in South Korea. So with my education, I had my bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering, and then I completed in 2014 from KNUST, Ghana. And then I also did my master's and doctorate here in South Korea, also in aerospace engineering in 2017 and 2021, respectively. I actually finished my PhD last year, August. So when it comes to journal publication, by God's grace, I'm privy to reviewing some papers for some kind of high impact journal. So when you look at the list that I've given, in this year, I've been given 3 invitations in the first 3 journals to be a reviewer. So I believe most of us know Scientific Reports, which is a Nature publication. And then the second one is in Computers and Biology. That's also another journal. And then also recently I received an invitation to be a reviewer for International Journal of Aeronautic and Space Sciences. Actually, that is the Korean Society of Aerospace, their kind of journal. And then I also do some, which is sometimes given as a back pass from some of my senior men and colleagues from Aerospace Science and Technology, Journal of Fluids and Structures, AIAA Journal, Bioinspiration and Biomimetics, and then Journal of Fluid Mechanics, it will be. So I've reviewed, if I can count, about 11 papers so far, rejected some, requested for major revision in some, and also minor revisions, and finally accepted some. So I'm just bringing on board what I've been able to point out from what I have received from others. And also personally, when I write journal, what I mostly look out for in my personal writings. I've been able to publish 5 journals when I was doing my PhD. And then I've attended about 11 conferences, that is international conference, and then almost 6 domestic ones, which I have one to attend, God willing, next week. All right. So going straight to my presentation, as I said, the main purpose is for us to know how to select journals and then also how to avoid desk rejection. And basically, this is going to be the content of my presentation. I'm going to give a general overview of journal publication, talk about peer reviewers, which I already said I've been privileged to be part in so many journals. And actually, when a reviewer takes your paper, what they look at. And then also give a section by section guide, as in what reviewers are looking for in every section of your paper, so as to not reject your paper. And then the last one to talk about some tips that is just about general tips for all of us to put down. And then we can go to Q&A. All right. So this is the general overview of journal publication. I would like to do this very short exercise. Please, I want to see maybe a thumbs up of how many people have not, so that I know the kind of audience that I have and then where to place much emphasis. I hope you please understand me, because there are some people that are new to journal publications, others too have submitted, some others too, they are experts. So if it's possible, can you please give me a thumbs up? Yeah, that would be good for me. Maybe a thumbs up of how many people have had that privilege of publishing. Please, it's just a very short, either thumbs up or any, yeah. If anyone has, okay, I've had one from Venice. And the people are many, so I need to go back and forth. Okay, press draw, all right. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Okay, Isaiah, all right. So it's like we have few people, yeah, because our number is quite many. So we have few people who have not published anything or written anything before. So I believe they can also have a fair idea of what we are looking at when we talk about journal publication. So I want to start about with the journal procedure. So basically, when you submit your paper to a journal, what mostly it goes through is that first we have the editor's cut, which is very key. So what is the editor's cut? The editor's cut is the first step where the editor receives the paper and checks if the content is within the scope of the paper. So if, let's say, for my field, there's the Journal of Fluids and Structures. There's so when you go to the journal website, they list their scope. So before you submit a paper, make sure that first of all you're able to pass the editor's cut. That is, your study should be within the scope and the aim of the paper. Otherwise, automatically they will reject or refer. That is mostly what is done. So there are some journals that have sister journals within the same publishing. So they will tell you that, okay, your content is okay, but we want to refer you to our sister journal. So in that case, you'll be referred, and then then they will continue from there. So if you're able to meet the editor's cut, the next is about the peer review. So editors will, and then also, sorry, the editors can also be associate ones. Sometimes your papers can be handled by the associate editor and not the main editor. And then the next step is about peer review. So in terms of peer review, we have different types of peer review. And as I've listed, we have the single blind. Single blind means that so when you submit your paper and I'm the reviewer, you don't know who is reviewing your paper, but I know the authors of the paper. That is single blind. And double blind is that I don't know you, you don't know me. So I hope we understand. So single blind, you don't know the reviewer, but double blind, you don't know the reviewer and then the author or authors. So basically, that is what's the blind. So every journal has the way the peer reviewing goes. And then also to make mention of this, during the peer review, when you are submitting the paper, some journals will ask you to suggest reviewers. That is people that you think are experts in the field and they can help improve the quality. The purpose of peer review, which I will enlighten us on, is to help us to improve the quality of our paper. So it is not a kind of way to criticize your paper, but to help you improve your paper. So going back to peer review, the number of reviewers will also depend on the journal. Some have 2, some have 3, some have 4, some have 5. So depending on the number of reviewers that the journal feel or the editor at that time feels is good for your paper, they send it to as many people as they want. And then as I said, the peer reviewer or the peer review also checks about the scope again and then the aim of the study. And then they also check the relevance of the study. And then, as I said, they make comments to improve the quality of work. And finally, they make decision, as in whether it should be a major revision, a minor revision, they should accept or reject your paper. So basically, peer reviewers are key when it comes to our topic for today's workshop. They are the main people. They work with both the authors and then also the editors. And editors make decisions based on what the peer reviewers send to them. So after your paper has gone through the editor's cut, the peer review, it goes through some various revisions. And then lastly, it's accepted. And then when it's accepted, it's given to publishers. So as most of us do know, there are a lot of publishing houses, Elsevier, IAP, Nature, IOP Science, so many publishers. So the publishers' work is that they accept, they pick up the accepted paper, and then now they try to put it in the right formatting style. So you could see that in some papers we have the double, some two is just single, and so they know how the style is. And in doing that, sometimes while they read your paper, they get a little confused. So they need you to, first of all, clarify, because after the publishers put it out there, that is going to be the final one, unless maybe there's technicality and the paper has to be withdrawn. But what publishers put online or publish is what is basically the final one. So after they've also put it in the right format, they tell you to check and clarify if the equations that they've put there, mostly they put it in PDF, which is the former or the final version. So they tell you to clarify if the things are okay, the equation, the tables, the symbols, the names of the authors, their investees. If you verify everything is okay, you just tell them in a comment that it's okay. And then finally they publish it online. And then also they also have the hard copy if you want to buy the proceedings or the journal papers for that month or for that volume. So basically we have the open access and then closed access. So the open access ones comes with a fee, which is kind of very expensive for the high publishing houses. I remember recently my paper, I paid about $2,300 or so, yeah, in Elsevier. So basically that is why some professors will link the projects to the paper so that at the end they will use the project money to pay for the publication. And actually open access is kind of very expensive because they are making your paper available to everyone. So in that case, everyone can see your paper, and the only way the publishing house can get their money is that you are paying for making your paper free. So basically, in more cases, the papers that you're able to download freely has been paid for by those who published it. So I believe we are able to get this flow. All right. So as I said earlier, basically the editor has the final say, as in whether to accept, reject, or undergo minor revision or major revision. However, they don't just bring it or just tell you that I've rejected your paper or I've accepted your paper. As I said, they first need all reviewers to bring their reports, and then from there, they make the final decision based on the reviewers' report. So I'll just like us to know who a reviewer is or who a peer reviewer is, because I believe that even as we are learning on how they do their work. I believe some of us will also like to be reviewers ourselves, which in my next slide, I will explain some of the importance or the benefits of being a reviewer yourself. So as I said earlier, peer reviewers are people who work with the editors, and basically they are experts in the specific area of study. So when it comes to your specific area of study, there are people who also know about that subject matter. So when it comes to peer review, those people are given a chance to review your paper. And these people have proven records of expertise in that research area. And they've done that by publishing conference papers, many journal papers, textbooks, and patents in that specific research area. There are also cases where you might receive a paper or somebody can peer review for a journal that is out of his scope, but within a section of that paper, it's about his research area. So let's say the whole paper is about biology, but there's a specific area which is about physics. So the editor can tell the reviewer to please review that small section for us. And then also, if a reviewer is somebody who is abreast with current research trends, you should know what is happening, how the research area is moving, which direction, which methods are being used, which approaches or which people are really doing or publishing the papers. We should be abreast with current research trends in that specific area. And then lastly is a voluntary work. You are not being paid for being a reviewer. So anytime you receive reviewer comments, these are people who just volunteered to help improve your paper. And then what are the roles of a peer reviewer? And as I've written here, first of all, they try to maintain the integrity of the said research area and journal through filtering. So they try to avoid junks, putting so many unnecessary or kind of bad papers into the system. So they try to be as the filters. They filter by checking rigorously. And they also assess the quality, the originality, the validity of your submitted paper. And then lastly, they make constructive criticisms to both the authors and then the editors. All right, so basically these are the roles of a peer reviewer. And then somebody can ask, how do I become a peer reviewer? So as I said, a peer reviewer is anyone who is an expert. So you can be somebody who has a PhD holder, somebody who works in the industry, but if you have that expert knowledge in that area, you can be a peer reviewer. And how do you become one of them?
Sorry, doctor, let me
Okay.
distract you. Please, can you make it a full screen?
Can I?
I mean, can you make your screen sharing a full screen? Like
Okay.
your slideshow.
All right.
Please, those who have their microphones on, can you please turn it off because there's a lot of noise coming from something.
Yes, okay. This one is okay.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Right. Please, I hope it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't take notes of that. You were seeing the presenter slide.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So as I was saying, okay, we are done with this part. So how do you become a peer reviewer? As I said, you have to be an expert in the field. And this is done through recommendation. So someone who is already a reviewer can recommend you for review. So for instance, I receive a paper. I think, oh, maybe my brother Samuel or Justin can do better. So I tell the editor that I recommend this brother or this researcher to review the paper. So based on that, they put your name in the pool. And then from there, you are being recognized by the journal as part of their reviewers. And then also you can be by being a member of an association. So for instance, NUGS, we can have a journal, and as a member of NUGS, we know what you can do. So based on that, we are able to give you that opportunity to be able to bring your knowledge on board to help scrutinize the papers. And then you can also become a peer reviewer by having a direct contact with the journal. You can always check the editor's email or who is the admin for that journal and then request if they need a peer reviewer. Then you submit your details to them. Then they can add you, and then also you can also become a peer reviewer. And then another way to become a peer reviewer is through delegation of review job. So as I said, I've received some backdoor jobs from my professor. Sometimes he's very busy. So he just says that, hey, I have this paper, I need like 2 weeks to review. Can you please check, and then let's discuss the comments. So that is also one way to become a reviewer. And then lastly, which is also among the ways, networking. Networking. I believe that whenever we attend conferences, we shouldn't just go and present our paper and just leave. Let's make friends. Let's exchange cards, as in your personal card with mine. Let's try and network. Let's know what each other is doing. So based on that, if for instance, I know what you are doing and I see something, I can be able to recommend you. So please, let's not live a kind of lonely life. Networking is very, very key. And I believe that is the main reason why conferences and workshops like these come into play. Sometimes you share and then you get somebody, try and then contact the person. And then lastly, about this peer reviewers, I would like to talk about why become a peer reviewer. So peer reviewing job, as I said, first of all, is voluntary. You don't get paid for it, but it's kind of very rewarding, as in it can help you to improve your personal research, because you are being given the latest journals or latest research works that people are doing all over the world. Because there have been some cases where I think my last review, I had already finished my experiment. I'm trying to like put them into a paper. Then I received this review I had to do. After reading, I realized that, oh, I mean, they are doing something similar to what I'm doing, but fortunately for me, the limitation of their paper is what I'm trying to solve. So I hope you get me. So it's like it's helping you to also be current, help to improve your research scope, and also to increase your knowledge. So whenever you receive somebody's paper, these are some of the advantages. And lastly, it also helps you to build your personal career, or as in your career profile. So when you use a website known as Publions, Publions is kind of different from ResearchGate and then also Google Scholar. Publions, after like giving the papers that you've written and all that, your career, it also gives kind of another column for you to list the journals that you peer review for. So that is also another way to build your career. And whenever you apply to any place, a company, for further studies or to do postdoc or to be a professor, you can always add your link, and then through that they can check who you are. So being a peer reviewer also helps in that kind of way. Okay, so now we want to look at, after you've gone through the editor's cuts, now our major reason why we are here is to understand how to avoid paper rejection. And as I've told you, the paper rejection acceptance is done by the reviewers. So in this few slides, you are going to look at what do peer reviewers basically look at. So when personally I pick a paper, what am I looking at? When you are writing a paper, what should you pay attention to? So please, let's take that into mind. So I'm talking from reviewer point of view, and you should also talk from the writing point of view, that after you've written your paper, you need to look at some key things, whether you've answered some key questions. And those are the things that I'm going to bring our attention to. So in case I don't explain some past wall and you don't get it, please, when it's time for the Q&A, you can refer me back to the slide, and then I'll do justice more to that thing. All right, so when a reviewer first receives your paper, after it has gone through the editor's cut, sometimes the editors, because they are so much in a hurry and receiving so many papers, they are not able to filter the papers well. And they believe that the peer reviewers will do that job for them. So basically, maybe, yeah, the paper was out of scope, but the editor didn't see it and he took it out. the reviewers can bring it back that this study is out of scope, and then they will explain why, and then finally the editor will reject. So basically, when a reviewer receives your paper, there's something known as the first decision. First decision is based on your title, your abstract, and your conclusion. So when I receive your paper, first thing, I look at the title of the paper. I read the abstract thoroughly, and then I go to the conclusion. And the reason why this is the first decision is that it avoids any form of delay in reviewing. For some of us who have reviewed, who have written papers before, we know that sometimes reviewing can even take like a year. Some even first response can come like 6 months time and back and forth another 6 months. So you submit the paper like January 2021, you can get it accepted in January 2022. Like that is how it is. So when a reviewer receives your paper, the first thing is I check the title whether it's within my scope of study.
Recording in progress.
Then I will just have to stop the reviewing process and tell the editor that is out of scope for me. Because I think recently I received one paper about COVID-19 SARS. I'm like, out of my scope. Please can they mute the person for me? Okay, yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So as I was saying, so to avoid delay in the reviewing, I have to check whether I can be able to review it. If I can't, then immediately I reject. So as I said recently, I'm into aerodynamics, and then I received a paper on SARS, COVID-19. So immediately, I mean, that point I saw it decline. So not decline as I'm rejecting your paper, but I declined the invitation. So there's a difference between rejection and declining. So first of all, the reviewer has to accept or decline the invitation, then before he or she can review. So to avoid any delay, you just have to decline if you think the title, the abstract, and the conclusion are out of your research area. So after the person has been able to satisfy the first impression, or the paper has been able to satisfy the first impression, we go to what we call the initial impression. And that is what we should be looking out for when we are writing a paper. So the first is what kind of question is the researcher trying to address, or what kind of research gap are you feeling? And that is very, very important. What question are you answering? What kind of research gap? And it brings you to the relevance of the study. Basically, I've seen that many papers write, this is the first study to do blah, 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 blah. But as I've written here, the fact that this is the first study doesn't mean it is relevant. Please let's take note. And why am I saying this? The fact that you are the first person to do it could also mean that others have tried and it didn't work, or others don't see the relevance in it. So if it's a first study, you need to prove beyond doubt that indeed this first study is relevant, and not just hold on to this is the first study to investigate whether like something is okay. No. So please let's not hold on to that. I'm the first to do this. I'm the first to do that. It doesn't really get your paper accepted. But let's rather look at what question are we answering in terms of filling a research gap. It could be that it is not a new method, but we are adding knowledge. It could also be that it is already existing method, but we are studying new parameters. So the fact that I'm also trying to encourage those who are trying to find the head and the tail of their current research work. It shouldn't always be I'm the first person to study this thing. No, you can study the current trend and then also continue with what is happening. And then we also look at the originality of the paper. That is when you're also writing, so you also look at for the originality. So originality just means that what are you adding to the subject area in comparison to what we already know? Are you expanding our knowledge? So in this case, it's not just to the reviewer, but it's to the entire kind of people in the research field. Are you opening our eyes to a novel finding, or trying to tell us that, okay, this thing also can work or when you do this, this will happen, which basically maybe our attention hasn't gone there. And in this case, a quality literature review is key, because in order to differentiate originality or differentiate your work from others in terms of originality, it means that you should have a very wide knowledge of the current research trend in that area. So basically, when a reviewer is reviewing your paper, he or she has to check for the quality, as in quality of your literature review, and then the originality in terms of how different your work is from what has already been published. And then also one thing we look out for is the clarity and readability of text. Please, as I've written here, we should avoid the use of big words that will require the editor to go and pick a dictionary. As I said earlier, reviewers are not being paid. So when I pick your paper to review, maybe out of my personal busy schedule, I've given myself 2 hours to maybe review maybe 3 pages or 5 pages of your work. And if after every one sentence, I need to go and pick a dictionary, to be frank, you make the person angry. So try as much as possible to avoid, big words. I hope you understand. And then also, it is your duty to check thoroughly for any grammatical error and sentences that do not it's not clear. Clarity of sentence. That is actually not a peer reviewer's job. I don't know if for those who have published before, you can get this reviewer comments where they will tell you that take the paper to English proofreading like center for them to review your work again. So basically, yeah, because maybe he reads so many things and he doesn't really understand. Some of the reviewer comments too, they can tell you that this sentence is not clear. Can you rewrite it or revise it? So please, when you are writing, it is your duty to avoid big words or words that will require dictionary to understand. And you have to thoroughly check for any grammatical error. It is your duty. Okay. So still talking about the initial impression, we also look at the relevance of all figures and tables, so or images in the text. So when we take your paper and we start reading, we are trying to, we are trying to see if that table or that figure is kind of relevant to the research objective or research area. But if it is not, then we have to request that is being taken out. Or if it is not enough, then reviewers will request that you add more figures or you do further study or expand your parameters so that we can be able to get a better understanding. And then you don't just put in figures because they are figures. Make sure they are relevant to your current study. And then also when it comes to conclusion, as I said, this is first initial impression. So when the reviewer picks your paper and he or she reads the abstract and he goes to the conclusion, he's trying to see how you were able to conclude based on your research question. Have you been able to address it with more evidence? Is there a connection between your conclusion and then your main question? Because people basically lose focus, is that they start talking about this and all of a sudden they shift to another thing, and it's like you don't see the head and the tail. There's no connection between their conclusion and their research objective. So please, when we are writing a paper, we should also look at that. And then also we should look at kind of whenever we are trying to disagree with current academic findings. So there's something which is well established in literature, but maybe your results shows disagreement. It can happen. Recently there are some debates in my research area about what is the right approach or why we are getting two research groups are giving us two different evidence. So basically, you should be able to provide enough evidence whenever your research or your findings are kind of they disagree with the current academic findings. And then also we are looking at something we call spotting major flaws. When a reviewer picks your paper, that is what they check. They want to spot major flaws. And as I said earlier, the first major flaw is about contradictions in your results, because the reviewer knows, he has a fair idea of what you are doing. So first of all, he or she is checking if you are following the system. There's a systematic way of doing the thing. Are you following the validity of your approach, whether it's systematic, how detailed are your methods? And as I've listed here, or I've written here, we should avoid discredited methods. So please, when you are doing research, make sure that the approach that you are using is very well credited and kind of known, so that at least people can be able to repeat what you are doing. And then also, we check out for insufficient and unclear data or figures. So when we feel, as I said earlier, the figure is unclear, or I don't understand why this figure is here, then they spot it out and then they tell you. So make sure that you've produced enough or sufficient figures to buttress your point, to establish what you are doing. And then for those of us who are into experimental research, we should try as much as possible to avoid ignoring processes that significantly affects the study. So what I mean is that as we all do know that when there is a procedure, there are some procedures that determine the outcome of your study. But maybe if you ignore it, it means automatically your paper will be rejected. Because maybe based on a certain finding, they've shown that this method A or B is what gives this. But in your approach, you ignored it. So in that case, you have an issue with rejection. And then, as I said, you should use sufficient control parameters. If it's sampling, you should have enough sampling data, and your data should be precise, and then there should be repeatability of your study. Repeatability is very key. I'm going to expound on some of them once I go through the rest of the slides. Okay, so in this section, I'm going to talk about a section by section guide. How do you write introduction? How do you write conclusion? So that when a reviewer, because as I said, reviewing job is not being paid. And I'm not going to, like most reviewers, like yesterday, I received text message from a senior colleague in Germany where he was reviewing a paper during his lunchtime, and he really got pissed off. Yeah, he really got pissed off. But I told him that I think he should stop and go and eat, because he didn't understand the sentences. He doesn't see, like, he is like, yeah, the person knows what he or she is doing, but writing is key. It's like many people know, but how to narrate it or to make us understand is what is now the big issue. And one approach that personally I use is that whenever you're writing a paper, you are not writing only to experts, you're also writing to novice. Because somebody who is new to the field, like let's say I just started my master's or my PhD, and I just took your paper, help me to understand some of the basics. Yeah, there are some journals that are top journals. I know most of the Nature, they are very like straight to the point. Don't talk plenty. Just tell us what you saw. What is your novelty? Just go straight. So those kind of journals are there. But most journals, please try as much as possible and explain some of the basics. Let the novice, the beginner, also, be enthusiastic about what he or she is about to enter into. So please, let's put that at the back of our minds whenever we are writing a paper. So when it comes to writing an introduction, when reviewers pick your introduction, they look at these among others. So first of all, a well-written introduction should address the following. When you are done writing your introduction, you should ask yourself whether these key things have been answered. So first of all, have you been able to summarize the recent and relevant papers? The papers that you cited, are they relevant to the study? Or you just want to cite so that you have a lot of citations? And are they relevant? And are they recent? That is why as a researcher, you should always you should always be kind of abreast with current research trends. So for instance, you should be getting notifications. Personally, I've subscribed to the Google Scholar. You can enter some keywords and then click the alert. So whenever papers are published with some keywords, they automatically send you the link to the papers. So in that case, you always get papers that are being published day in and day out. And then you just download. So you can also be your own peer reviewer. You look at the title and then just glance through and see if it's relevant to your current study. If it is, you can download it and then later go through to see if it can help your personal research. So please, let's take that into and then use the Google Scholar alert to always help us know some of the recent publications that have been brought out there. And then also, when you're writing introduction, you need to highlight the research gaps in the current knowledge. So there is certain studies, or there are studies that have been done so far, but what is the gap in terms of recent papers or in terms of what that subject matter? Tell us. You need to highlight it. You need to emphasize that A and B and C have been done, but maybe the approaches that they used, and we can see some slight differences. And from there, maybe it is because of A, B, C, D. So therefore, we want to investigate that slight difference in parameter and see if we are going to get different results or the same results. So please, let's always try and highlight the research gap in terms of current knowledge in our introduction. And then let's also set out clear arguments. Arguments are allowed, as in why you think your study is important. Set it out clearly based on the first two. And then you need to establish your originality. That is the originality of your study, while demonstrating that you need the need for that specific research area or that specific research topic. And as I said earlier, give a clear target to the readers. Tell us that this is the direction that I'm going in the introduction, so that at the end we have it at the back of our mind that this is where you are going. And then we can look at the methods and then the others. And then so these are what should be found in a well-written introduction. And then in terms of originality and topicality. So when we talk about topicality, is your topic relevant in terms of recent research trend? So when you're choosing a research topic, it should be relevant to recent research trend.
Hey.
And you should avoid citing too many old papers that are like 10 years and above. You should trust. One of the key things we look at for if the researcher himself or the authors are current is that we look at the scope of their citations, as in which years. So please, let's try as much as possible to avoid citing too many old papers, like papers that are maybe published from 2000. But there are exceptions though, which I've written down there, that maybe in your case, your topic was maybe investigated about maybe 20 years ago. But based on some of the recent technologies and research outcomes, you believe that that kind of research topic should be revisited. So in that case, there's the need for us to study that topic again. So although your main paper or your main reference is kind of old, you have argued your point out that that paper cannot still hold. And therefore, based on the recent changes or recent technologies, we can't be able to solve some problems, or we can't be able to better the results that was published 10 or 20 years ago. So those are some of the exceptions. And one of the editors that I know in really publication just says that, so basically when reviewers bring the reports, they ask that, is it a novel or just confirming some well-known outcomes? So that is also something that we should also look out for when we write a paper. We should ask ourselves that, is our paper bringing out some novelty, or is it just confirming something that is well established? So it's just increasing our scope of knowledge or understanding in that research area. All right, so after the introduction, we go to the methods and then the materials. So when it comes to methods and materials, I've just grouped what we look out for, what most reviewers look out for, and what you should also be looking out for, which is known as the 3 R's. So first one is the replicability, repeatability, and the robustness of your method and materials. So when you talk about replicability, it means that
I'm sorry, Doctor, can you please turn on? Thank you.
Okay, I've omitted, yeah. All right, thank you. So when it comes to replicability, it means that do you have, as I've said here, do you have sufficient control points? Do you have wide area? If, like, let's say you are just doing questionnaires, did you consider a large age gap? So that it's like your research or your finding is not based on a certain group of people that have been able to cover thoroughly, maybe the rich, the poor, the women, the men, people who are able on. It's like, give us, you should be able to cover enough or control points or parameters so that at the end, you are not telling the reviewer or those who are going to read your paper that my results came by chance. That means that I have sufficiently controlled the parameters, and therefore the outcome is what it is because of what I've done and not because by chance. And then after that, we check the repeatability, the ability for your paper to be reproduced by other researchers. So in so doing, mostly it's required that you give into details your methods and your materials. Basically, for those who have published more than one, maybe in your first ever paper, you give details. And then in your second paper, since you use the same material and methods or the same experimental setup, you just go to the relevant ones, and then you just refer or you cite your paper for more details. But at the end, please make sure that your paper can be reproduced by other researchers, because basically most studies will require that you validate your results. How do I validate? I validate through repeatability. Although there's also validation through using maybe other methods. So we have the numerical approach, experimental approach, and then the analytical approach. That's the way of validating. But mostly the best one is to try and reproduce somebody's results. So that is very key. So please let's make sure that when you're writing a paper, we give much details about our method so that somebody can reproduce. There are also some cases where you can try and hide your secrets. Yeah, that one is like you bring it all out, but not all out, like all out, because that is kind of your secret in your lab or what you are doing. So I mean, you should create that balance. It should be enough for somebody to repeat, but not too much. That should be it. And the third one, that your methods and materials should be robust enough. Robustness in terms of, as I said earlier, sufficient control points, and the data should be enough to establish your finding or to establish your conclusion. And then there's something we call inbuilt biases. So what do we mean by inbuilt biases? So for instance, in my research, I measure the force that a body is able to produce when it flies in a fluid, whether air, water, or oil, or whatever fluid. But the sensors that I use have inbuilt kind of things. So the results that I get from the sensor is not what I want. So I should be able to like separate what I want from, so that my results will not be biased. So I believe some of us might have that also, that you need to not like try and nullify everything so that your results will be based on that key parameter per se. And then here I will advise that whenever you select a parameter or a method, try as much as possible to justify. What do I mean by justification? You don't just say I use 50 sample space. Why 50? Basically, when I review, I ask why 50? Why not 10? Why not 100? So you should always have a reason. You don't just, in research, we don't just, or in writing a paper, you don't just choose for choosing sake. There should be a reason for choosing, scientific reason. Maybe because current research have shown that when we use more than this number, it doesn't change the results. And to avoid too much computational time, I went for the least, which has already been validated. And then also we should try as much as possible not to cook data. We should try as much as possible not to cook the data, which is very key, because when it comes to cooking of data, when somebody is not able to reproduce your results and they're able to prove beyond doubt that the method that you listed or you gave us in your paper, we have tried the same thing, but the results are way different, then editors and publishers have the right to, although your paper might have been published, they can still withdraw your paper. So please, let's try as much as possible and let's say it as it is. All right, so we go to the next one, which is the results and discussions. So in terms of results and discussions, it's kind of a coherent evidence-based story. You say it as it is, what happened, what you discovered, what you confirmed, and also you need to evaluate your observations and try to explain. So this is where your basic understanding of the research kind of area comes in. So what you are seeing, does it also agree or disagree with other observations? You need to always put that also there. And then when you're explaining, as I said earlier, give wider explanation, not only to experts, but to those who are also beginners in that field, so that at the end, people can also appreciate the kind of work you are doing. And then we can also look at, when you're talking about the results and discussions, we can look at the gaps and inconsistencies in your results. So don't be scared when your results have some gaps, or maybe there's a shooting somewhere which deviates from the main thing. The most important thing is that you've been able to identify it, you should address it, and then give suggestions for future works. So don't be scared whenever your results, sometimes research results that go outside the way we know, there might be something that is hidden there. And if you take your time, you can be able to find it. And then based on that, you are able to, tell the whole world that, hey, if you do it that way, this is what is going to happen. And then lastly, you need to also admit all the limitations in your findings and in your approach. If there's any limitation, don't be scared to put it out there, because I believe you've read papers that they've said in the future we are going to do A, B, C, D. That's because maybe for now that is what they have tried, and in the future they would like to extend. So you can also always go by that approach. All right, so when it comes to the conclusion and the others, for conclusion, it's just a short summary. So after you've given us the well-written introduction, giving us a very robust, reliable, repeatable materials and methods, and then also you've discussed your results based on what you've presented, then you try and summarize the methods and the findings. And then one key thing is that it should reflect the aim of your study. So after you write your conclusion, ask yourself that, have I answered my objective, my question, my research gap question? Have I been able to answer it through my method and then my findings? That is what the conclusion is. It should be short enough. And then when it comes to images, figures, and tables, we should try as much as possible to look at the captions. The captions should be very precise. It shouldn't be long sentences. It should be very precise, and it should go straight to the point. And then we should also ensure, that is our duty as people who write papers. Basically, if you submit your paper and the editors or reviewers are not able to see the figures, then what are they going to review? Because text is not enough. Because in reviewing, if you say ABC, I will go and check, is it true? Am I also seeing ABC? If you say the line is linear, okay, fine, figure this. I have to also go and check. So, but what if the figure is not clear? So these are some of the things we should please take note. We should always ensure the quality. I realize that when you use save as in Word, Sometimes after save as PDF, the whole figure then becomes blurred and all those things. It happens in some. So basically, you can use the save as Adobe. If you have that option in your Word, you can use that one. So it tries as much as possible to maintain the quality of your paper. And then for those of us who are using MATLAB, your MATLAB figures should be saved as a meta file. So meta files basically enhance the quality of your MATLAB figure. And then also you can have your figure in either Origin or SPSS, whatever tool you've used to get your figure. You can bring it to PowerPoint, and then you can set your PowerPoint resolution to high resolution. And then after you copy from PowerPoint and paste into the Word, that is also another way to enhance your quality, or the quality of a figure. So please, before you submit any paper, make sure that the paper, the pictures, the tables, the images have high quality. Otherwise, your paper can just be rejected because they can't see anything, or the whole thing has become blurred and they can't do anything about it. And then also make sure that you cite every paper, figure, and image in your text. So if you have 5 tables, make sure that you refer to all of them. So maybe in table 1, as shown in table 1, as presented in table 1, in figure this. So there are some cases where people have figures, but they never cited the figure, or they never referred to them. Yeah, so it means in that case, the whole figure is not important. So please make sure that as you list your figures, they are all going to be referred in your test. Okay, so after you've written the conclusion, and then also you've checked the quality of your images, your table, and then your figures, you should look at referencing. Referencing is also very, very, very crucial in the overall paper. So let's look at these 3, which is the accuracy, the adequacy, and then the balance. So in terms of accuracy, we are looking at relevance, as I said earlier, and then in terms of whether your references are recent. And then one thing that we should also take note of is that there should be consistency in our referencing style. So if you're using APA or Harvard, please maintain the consistency. You know, some of them, they use the name, like maybe Ajimai 2022, then semicolon. Some to just use the number. So please, let's maintain consistency. That is not the job of a reviewer. It is your responsibility. So immediately you bring the paper and these kind of little things are there, it can cause your paper to be rejected. It might seem trivial, but some journals are very strict on these things, because I know some editors, when you submit with these issues, they reject it at the editor's cut and tell you that check all these things, check your grammar, check your referencing styles and everything, check for consistency, and then resubmit. So please, before you submit, make sure that you've checked all that. And then also make sure that all the papers you cite are also listed. So if you cited 5, make sure all the 5 are listed in the reference. And then let's also make good use of Mendeley and then EndNote. These are 2 softwares that helps our referencing very easy. It makes referencing very easy. Basically, if you go online, how to use Mendeley, how to use EndNote, you can learn how to use them. It's just less than a minute. You have the paper, just clicks, then just, yeah. You can even link your Word, Microsoft Word to Mendeley and then EndNote. So basically, it just brings them all out and it just lists them very nice. And then we should also talk about adequacy. That is the papers you are citing, is it easily accessible? Because if I'm a reviewer and you tell me about this paper and I can't access it, then how do I know if what you are saying is true or not? So please, let's try as much as possible and use a lot of open access journals. And then also some journals have a minimum number of citations. So please, before you write a paper, check that if the journal has in some journals, you should cite at least 40 papers. So please, let's check that. And then also, when you are talking about citation, let's look at balance. What do I mean by balance? You shouldn't be always citing your papers or papers from your lab. It's like you are over-relying on your previous works. Yes, you can cite your paper, but don't over-rely on it. Try and connect your study to others and then cite others too. And then also make sure that, as I said earlier, the papers are easily accessible so that to be helpful to the readers. And then recognize kind of initial works and related works. So I believe what I mean is that if somebody was the first person to start your work, it's always good to recognize the person and then also try and connect to some of the related works. And then one thing also that should be looked out for is plagiarism. People have results and they try to change the title here and take the same paper here, take the same paper there. Please, let's try as much as possible. I know that as researchers, we try to squeeze a lot of writings from our papers or from our results, but let's try as much as possible to avoid any form of self-plagiarism. And then also let's avoid the direct copy of sentences. Some people, when you use plagiarism check, it's like almost all their sentences were copy and paste, copy and paste. Actually, this plagiarism check is basically done by the editors. They have a software that they put your whole paper into to check the degree of plagiarism. If it's beyond a certain percentage, your paper can also be rejected. So please, let's take note of that. All right. So I think I'm coming to the end of my presentation, which almost is time to. So I'm going to give a general tip as in what to look out for or what to do whenever we are writing a paper so as to avoid any form of rejection. So first of all, whenever you receive reviewers' comments, please don't argue with the reviewer. If reviewer says, I think or I strongly recommend that you do A, B, C, D, find a polite way to respond and try to address the reviewer points comment by comment. Don't insist that this is what I want to do. Then, I mean, here you don't have a say. Then, okay, then you can take your paper away. So please try as much as possible not to argue with the reviewers and then be ready to get recommendations from reviewers. So basically, some reviewers can recommend their paper to you. So mostly it is seen that when the reviewer gives you that added citation to your paper, it's more likely the reviewer is the person who wrote that paper that he or she is recommending. So basically just find a way to add it and then you are good to go. And then also let's try and ensure consistency in tense. I realize that many writers don't pay attention to tense. And I've written something that I should refer to this. When you go to Google and you type using tenses in scientific writing, it will show you how, like introduction, what kind of tense to use, in the abstract, what kind of tense to use in conclusion. So please, you can just put that highlighted sentence in your engine, Google engine, and then you'll be able to get which tense to use when you're writing. And then lastly, don't be so much scared to submit papers to high impact factor journals. And the reason is that whenever you get your paper rejected in high impact factor journals, take the comments and use the comments to refine your paper. So please, let's have that in mind. Don't be scared. Just take it there. Some journals have 45 impact factor, some have like very high. Just if you believe you're able to meet, just submit. When they reject, look at why they rejected and try to refine or revise your paper in that accord. All right, so another general tip to all of us is that recently, it's not recently, like I know most of us use the word, but there are some publishing houses that prefer latex. So please, even as those of us who don't know about latex, let's try as much as possible and learn how to use it. Because one thing that I realize is that when a journal asks for latex, they also ask for Word, but when you write it in Word and your paper gets accepted, there might be some delay because when you give them the editor gives them your accepted paper, they need to now transfer the whole thing into LaTeX, which will delay the publication. So please, as you learn the Microsoft Word, please use your free time and learn how to use LaTeX. And then, as I said earlier, let's make good use of the Google search engine. If you don't know anything, please go and type Ask Google. He will try as much as possible to tell you how to do it. There's basically everything that you're struggling with. There's somebody out there who has done it. It's very easy. Just watch a video on YouTube, and then you are good to go. Don't stay in your lab and just be suffering whilst the solution is online. And then also, whenever you are writing a paper, please don't be jumping from point to point. Try and make your paragraph very concise. It should contain a specific idea, like a theme per paragraph. Sometimes when you read some papers, it's like, especially in the introduction, there's so many like disjoints all over. So please make sure that when you are writing a paragraph, you have specific theme for that paragraph, and you try as much as possible to link it to the next one so that it makes the whole idea very presentable and very well understood. And then last but not least, you can also use some very keywords to emphasize your results. Like, yeah, so based on your field, there are some very like strong words that you can use to emphasize strongly or significance, key, paramount. So try and use very keywords to emphasize your results. And then lastly, I would advise that you try as much as possible and build up your personal career, since this workshop is about building your academic path. It doesn't matter whether you have published a paper or not. Try as much as possible and register with ResearchGate, Google Scholar, Academia, Pablons. You just register, and as much as you attend a conference, just update, and then you are good to go. So I think this is the end of my presentation. Yeah, so lastly, I just want to tell us that the best way to write is to start now. Just start writing, and you can only learn how to write by writing. Don't be scared of writing. Don't be scared of rejection. Just put it out there, learn from the reviewer comments, and then try and revise your paper. So I think that is the end of my presentation. And Mr. Ajimai, if you just give me 1 minute, I want to do something. So basically, I just want to tell my fellow Ghanaians and also others who have joined, I attended KAIST, so I just want to tell us something about the KAIST scholarship. In KAIST, which is the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, currently the university is ranked, I think, 42nd according to the QS, and about 13th in materials and in materials, mechanical, and aerospace. So you can check out, the school has full scholarship, and they give monthly stipend. And the good news is that you don't require any GRE or any English proficiency. And also in KAIST, 80% of our courses are taught in English. So you have a lot of courses that are being taught in English, except you want to learn the Korean language. So I would like to maybe tell us, if you have a friend or you yourself for undergrad, master's, and PhD, you can always recommend somebody for that. So, all right. So thank you for that. That's just by the way. All right. So thank you very much. You can find most of the things I spoke about from this website. And for now, I'm done with my presentation. Questions are welcomed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Renaud Adwakutu. It was a very interesting and very educative presentation there. So I'm sure there are a lot of questions, but unfortunately we have only 10 minutes to get the questions done. So please, we are opening the floor now for questions. If you can't raise your hand and talk, you can type it in the chat session so I read it. And please be as concise as possible when you're asking your question so that Dr. Tu can answer you very quickly. All right, so please, if you have a question, just raise up your hands. And then Emmanuel Osei Tutu. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And once again, thank you, Doctor, for a nice presentation. I have one question, and I'll make it concise. Doc, for instance, if you have published or you have submitted your manuscript to a journal, though comment has not come, and you wish to send another paper, do you need to, summarize the methodology, or you still need, because you cannot make a reference to the paper that you have sent without receiving a comment, you need to, produce the same methodology, or you just need to summarize it?
Okay, please, can you hear me? All right. So I think I've had that experience also before. So basically, there are two ways you can approach this. First of all, the paper has been submitted and is under revision. So some journals accept that you cite your paper and then write into brackets under revision. But since, as you are saying, the method is not now known, then it will be better if you produce as much information as possible, so that like the reviewer too can be able to grasp or be able to understand what you are saying. Please, I hope you are you get what I'm saying here. So some journals accept under revision. They accept that you cite your paper even if it's under revision. But in most cases, try as much as possible and also give enough information to the reviewer. You don't just say refer to my paper. So please, let's take note of that.
Thank you. Well explained. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. And there's a question in the chat session that says, how does collaboration with renowned professors or labs within your field affect the process of publication?
Oh, can you come again? Okay, let me check the question. All right, sorry.
How does collaboration with renowned professors, professors or labs within your field affect the process of publication?
Actually, if you are saying it maybe in reference to the slide I showed, I need to clarify that first, because the slide that I showed about collaboration was about if you want to become a peer reviewer. Please, I hope you understand. Those are some of the ways you can become a peer reviewer this works. But in this way, sometimes it's beneficial. That is the truth. Whenever reviewers pick your papers, they check who is the corresponding author. Are they well known? Are they well? If they are well known, it sometimes brings the reviewers' gas down, because to them they believe. So sometimes, yeah, the big guys are able to bully their way through with publications. It in some way helps, but yeah, if you are not well known, yeah, then reviewers have to put their gas on. We don't know you in the field, you are new, so we need to scrutinize you a lot. But if you are well known, yeah, it puts the gas down, because they believe that the authors already know what they are doing. Their methods are well verified. And then for that matter, we don't need to maybe check so much on some of the things, but rather maybe their results. So in some way, it helps. Yeah, it really helps. But let's not depend on that, please. Let's just make sure we are doing the right thing. But if you have the opportunity to collaborate with big people, then why not? Please.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, do we have any other question? If you have any other question, you can raise up your hand. Any questions? Do we take that to mean that you understand everything and you are clear on everything that Doctor spoke about?
I have a question.
Okay, somebody has a question.
Okay, you can speak. I don't know who it is though. Okay, you can talk.
It's me. All right. So assuming that I have sent I sent a paper to a journal, and then I got a review on the paper that has been sent to me. After their recommendation, after editing a paper, can I send it back to the same journal or I have to look for a different one?
Please, did they tell you to do a major revision or they rejected?
It was rejected, but still have some recommendations that
Yeah, so when in that case you revise it and then you can submit to the same place, yeah. And then you know, there's something known as cover. You have to always add a cover letter. Most journals will recommend. So in adding your cover letter, you are able to address that, oh, this paper has been submitted with paper reference number, so and so and so. And we have rigorously revised, and we think that now it is in the best of shape to be accepted. So you can still just revise and then start all over the process in the same place. Yeah. Please,
Okay.
I hope. Yeah,
please, are you answered?
Yeah, please, are you answered or? Hello.
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please, any other questions? Any questions? Okay. It appears there's no questions. So, Doctor, please, any last words for us?
Okay. All right. Okay. So thank you very much once again for this opportunity. And I would just, as I said, like to encourage all of us, let's try as much as possible and network. Let's try as much as possible and work as a team. Like as a team, we should work together. I believe that NUGS, as time goes on, because here in Korea, we have GASCA, which is the Ghana Student Association, and we have GIC, which is the Ghana International Conference. So basically, we invite Ghanaians to submit papers, which can be used to help do things in Ghana. So I'm so much advising all of us that let's try and network, and then let's not lose hope whenever our papers are being rejected. Reviewers are human beings like you and I. As our sister asked, sometimes you take it to A and it's rejected, but you take it to B and the same thing is accepted. So yeah, sometimes try your luck to works. Maybe the same paper, if it had gone somewhere, they would have accepted it. So please don't lose hope when the paper is rejected. Take the reviewer comments in good, with a good heart, respond to them, and then if possible, resubmit or choose another journal which is within the scope, and then submit it to that journal. So God bless all of you. And I believe we've learned a lot, and we shall meet when we come back in the second part of the discussion. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We are very happy. So it's time for our break, and we have a 10-minute break. And then actually, yeah, so we have 10 minutes break. So after the 10 minutes, then we move straight to the second lecture. So if the DJ is online, can you please keep us entertained while we go for our 10-minute break?
Even missing no so far. Time no day, shade. Even the time we do so crowd. Get up and do something good for yourselves. Then bring you up, mother. Say ye and you be blah blah blah. Get up and do something good for yourselves. The time and time.